Hello, welcome to EarnQA. So in this session, we are going to talk about the synchronization. So what is synchronization? So synchronization is the process of utilizing time periods or timelines for a specific purpose. In most of the cases, when we wanted to automate the application testing scenarios, certain times QTP needs to wait and see what we wanted to verify. If QTP does not wait, scripts might not work properly. And there are so many places where objects would take certain time to load. There are so many places where application page loads in a specific time period. There are instances where an object keeps on changing its properties. There are instances where we wanted to explicitly validate something and such that QTP needs to wait something on some other object so that it can revalidate certain property. So there are so many instances where we need to ask QTP to wait on hold or pass for a while, and that thing can be achieved in a pattern called synchronization. So synchronization is the process of utilizing time periods or timelines for a specific purpose. So let's go and learn step by step all about the synchronization in this session. Let's get started. So the main agenda in this session is to talk about the synchronization followed by the different options: sync, wait, exist, wait property, and the timeout option. And then we practically have certain implementations on the browser, on the page, and the object related. And then we talk about how do we conduct the test, or how do we implement these methodologies in a test format so that we could use it. So that is the agenda. Let's get started. So basically, what is a synchronization? Synchronization is the process of utilizing time periods or timelines for a specific purpose. Example, sometimes we wanted to wait until a web browser or web page loads all the components of it or all the objects of it. Sometimes we wanted to see whether we read a property of an object, whether a button is enabled, whether a value is being entered into an edit box, whether a value can be selected from a list box. So we need to wait to read a property, an object. Sometimes we wanted to wait and try an object if it is not found at the first instance. Sometimes we wanted to validate certain property which for an object keeps on changing dynamically. There are so many circumstances. Sometimes we wanted to see whether a pop-up loads successfully. Sometimes we wanted to wait until a dialog box loads completely. There are so many instances. And to overcome all these instances, the possible solution we have in the QTP or UFT is known to be synchronization. So synchronization is the process of utilizing time periods or timelines for a specific purpose. Few examples. For a progress bar to reach 100%, when you click submit something, or when you wanted to book a air or a flight or a car or a hotel, there is certain time it takes us, or there is a progress bar which takes certain time to reach 100% so that that action is performed, and we need to wait until that progress bar reaches 100%. How do we reach? How does QTP know that it is progressing and it is reading 100%? That we need to learn now. Sometimes we need to wait certain object is enabled, certain object is disabled, or a pop-up or a window gets opened successfully. There are so many situations where we wanted to learn and wait on the application so that tests can be run successfully. And here we are going to utilize a synchronization concept. And synchronization can be done in 5 steps or in 5 different methodologies. We could do that by inserting a synchronization point. We can do that by using or utilizing sync method on a browser, on a page. We could use that an exist statement with respect to any object. Does my page exist? Does my object exist? Does that list box exist? Let me check for 10 seconds. Let me check that object existence for 15 seconds. So exist is another method. Or directly we might use wait command. Wait 5 seconds. Wait 10 seconds. Explicitly wait. Sometimes we might use a property. QTP, can you please wait on an object to see whether certain enabled property is applicable on this object for 10 seconds. So wait property is another mechanism where we could apply on top of QTP so that it can wait for an object, it can wait for a test to be executing. So these many options we have in the QTP. So let's get started and learn them one by one. Let's get started with the practical session now. So let me open up the QTP, and this is the QTP and this is the application. So let me start running it. Let me go to object repository, and then once the object repository is up, let me add all the objects of the page. Yes, I want to add all the objects in the page, all the default objects. We know what is a default, we know what is selected object to type, and we know what is all the object to type. Once everything is done, my program is this. Set, already we talked about it. Let me say home page. What is the home page? The home page is this. My browser, my page, this is the home page. Now on top of my home page, let me work with a link called home. I wanted to click on a link called home first of all. I wanted to click on a home call first in the beginning. Once we do that, I wanted to enter on my home page with respect to web edit, whose name is username. I wanted to enter a value called EarnQA. Similarly, on my home page, with respect to another web edit, whose name is password, and I wanted to enter a value called EarnQA. Once done, on my home page, with respect to an image called sign in, I wanted to click on it. So this is the simplest script. I wanted to make use of now to demonstrate the actual behavior, what's happening here, and what can we do with that. Okay, good. So let me get started. Once the application is up, I wanted to click on home, and I wanted to enter username. I wanted to enter password, and then I wanted to click on sign in. So this is the actual implementation of what I'm to explain you. I have my login scenario. I wanted to enter username. I wanted to enter password, and then I wanted to click on image called sign in. So does that work? It works perfectly. Let me just go and run. Let's go. Now we are implementing to run home. It clicked on home, and then it entered username, password, and it clicked on sign in, and we navigated to the flights page. So everything is good. Since we have opened the browser, it does it. But I wanted my QTP to open the browser by default. I wanted my QTP to open the browser by default. How do we do that? So let me write a program to do that. Let me just go and pick the URL, close this browser. In the beginning, let me use a command called system. So what is that meaning? It means that in the beginning, Since we are opening the application, I do not want to open the application. Let QTP open the application. What is this meaning? System util run. What is this meaning? Anything, everything which can be, anything, everything which can be opened or executed from a system run command like a notepad, or a browser or an exe or an image or a URL, anything and everything which can be executed from a run command. The same thing can be done from QTP using system util run. Example, if I wanted to navigate to the URL, I could simply say this, and it would open up the browser. You could see that it opened a browser and navigated to that. So whatever that we could run from system run menu, the same thing can be done by QTP using a utility called system util.run. So that is the reason I said system util.run, this particular URL. Once this is done, click on home page, click on home link, enter username, enter password, and then click on sign in image. So that is the script. Let me run now. And we looked at it. It was working good in the beginning. Now this is the second time where we are trying to execute, and it worked perfectly. Now let me close this and rerun. I'm running the script again, and you could see that it navigated to the page and it clicked on home, and then it entered username and password. Everything was successful. Now, where is the point of synchronization now? And where does the synchronization comes into picture? For that reason, let me utilize a mechanism now. Okay, so let me run once again, and I would talk about the actual concept. So I'm running, so it has to load the browser, and you would see that it is displaying a message, object required home page. Okay, since we disabled it or just we commented, let me do that. Now let me close this. This is the time. Let me execute once again. It has to load the browser, and then it has to click on home. It should enter username, password, and then sign in. Everything was good. So what is this scenario? You're trying to log in into application. What if the application, in the application, we already logged in? Example, if I comment this piece of code, if I run this set again, let's see what is going to happen. Now it is trying to click on home, and it is trying to enter username. But already for information, we logged in. How can an application, when we logged in, you could re-log in? There is an application issue with respect to that, but in the real world, it does not allow us to log in. Then how do we make sure we are not logging in if we are already logged in? To do that, we should have a concept. First of all, we should do certain verification here. What is that verification? Before we log in, let me add this sign off link to the object repository. And let me say, if from browser in a page with respect to flight for a link called sign off, if this exists, then I should say execute this or click on logout button. So I would say browser, and now I need to click on sign off link. So browser and page, within the page find a flight, and then click on with respect to a link called sign off, click. If it is not, then else part comes into picture. If it is not existing, then go and log in into the application. So this is the scenario. For example, Now let me just go and execute this piece of code now. Let me run it again. Since we logged in, it should sign off. Since we logged in, it signed off. It has to click on home and everything's perfect. But what is happening? Since this sign off link existing, it simply signed off. But did we log in? So we're not logged in. So what I wanted to do, instead of using the same lines of code, let me say a function. And that function I would say login. So this is the code for the login. And in the login, even this becomes part of the login code. Now I would simply use logout and then call login. If it is not, directly login. So that is my representation. Let me run now. Now since the link sign off does not exist, it is checking for the sign off link, and if you can see that it is trying to check the exist behavior of this sign off link. It is trying to check whether this particular sign off link exists. So how many times or how many seconds it is trying to check. Basically it has a time of 20 seconds. Let's say I do not want to wait for 20 seconds. I just wanted to wait only for 5 seconds. Let me not waste my time. Let me just use only for 5 seconds. Within the 5 seconds, in this browser, on this page, if this link sign off exists, check for 5 seconds. If yes, click on that and then log in. If no, directly log in into application. So that is my scenario. Already we signed in. Let me run this particular piece of code again. You would see now within the 5 seconds it checked. It is calling the login. Login successful. Everything is good. So what is the synchronization here? The synchronization what we have utilized here at this point of time is exist. We're trying to ask QTP, don't try to do whatever you wanted. You just do what I wanted. And within this process, first you try to check whether this particular link exists. If you check, if it is, please sign off first. As you sign off, you would see a fresh home page, then you continue logging in. Or if it is not present, if the sign off link is not existing, you are good to go, else part, directly log in into application. So that is the simplest way that we could use one of the property called exist. Example, when we run this particular line of code, let me close this and start running it. Now it has to open the browser and it is trying to check for 5 seconds. Since it is not there, the sign off link not there, it is moving to else part and it is trying to log in. Certain times this browser might take some while. How do we instruct QTP to wait for a while? The simplest way to do that, usually on any web application, there is a default very useful method called sync. What is this sync? The sync indicates as you navigate, it might take certain time for this browser, for this page, or all the page objects of this to get loaded. How much time? It takes certain time. Sometimes 5 seconds, sometimes 10 seconds, sometimes 15 seconds. So you just be in sync with this page. So it internally reads a mechanism called done on the status bar. And based on that, when all the pages objects get loaded, then it would start executing. So this is a second utilization method called sync. You just be in sync with my browser and my page. And then now just go and check whether this particular sign off link exists. If yes, sign off now and then log in. If no, directly just go to login. So this is the second way. First way sync, second way exist. Sometimes before I just go and play about, let's say my login section takes certain time. So I wanted explicitly to wait for 5 seconds. It's not on a page, it's not on a browser, it's not on a object, but rather I would like to wait explicitly for 5 seconds. Then comes the another methodology, wait. Wait is the third methodology in the synchronization. The first, sync. Sync is applicable only for a browser and page. You could sync on a browser or you could sync on a page. It is not applicable for Windows. It is only applicable for web. You can use sync. You could check exist. The third one, explicitly you could also wait for 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 15 seconds. Within the brackets, the time frame is in seconds. So this is what we could use. There is another mechanism. As soon as you sign in, how do we cross check we successfully signed in? Let me write another function called login verification. In the login verification, I wanted to do this. On my browser, my page, flight, and I need to check a link, sign off exist. How many seconds? 5 seconds. And if that exists, let me return a value called login status. And what is this meaning? It means that in my browser, in my page, with respect to this link, check the exist methodology, check the exist property. If this link exists within the 5 seconds, it becomes true. That true can be assigned to login status. Now I'm going to reassign this login status to this. Login status is equal to login status. What is that meaning? Now it returns the true value, true or false, whatever, to the actual function. Now I would like to call this login verification in the beginning. Use this login status and use this login status. And what is that I wanted to display? Login status. Now let me just go and run this piece of code. It would show whether login is successful or not. So it clicked on that and it is trying to validate the verification. And you could see that it could not find a link called home. Why it was not able to find a link here? Let me run again. Let me run again because there are two browsers, two pages. Let me close it so that it loads freshly and gets started executing it. We are good? So this would open up the browser, navigate to the URL, check whether sign off exists. Since it is not existing, just go and click on home, wait for 5 seconds, and then enter username, password, and then check for login. Yeah, we logged in successfully, and the message box says true. And that is what we wanted, true. And how did we get this status? Simple. We are using another synchronization methodology called exist. So far we have used 3, sync, exist, and then explicit wait. Now, before I enter username, password, I wanted to cross check my edit box is empty. My edit box is empty. It does not have any value here. For example, sometimes when we register, it automatically picks the username. If that is the case, I'm just giving a scenario where there are situations while we get registered, the username is automatically carried to the username field. The only thing we need to enter is the password. How do we know? How do we make sure it is carried here? To do that, let me write another piece of code here. So what in my browser, or let me say in my home page, with respect to web edit called username, let me wait and check a property called value. What property are you expecting? For example, I have used EarnQA. If this is already applicable, then how many seconds? Let's say 5 seconds. This is in milliseconds, so let me say 5,000 milliseconds is equal to 5 seconds. So this particular line of code, what is the meaning in this particular line of code? On my home page, with respect to this username edit box, let me wait and check a property value. What value I'm expecting? Because I just entered a static value on QA, I'm expecting that. If it is a parameter, you would give a parameter called username, which is coming from actual the register page. But now since we are not using the parameter, let me use the static data called EarnQA. And how long you wanted to verify whether this data is present for a 5 seconds. Check that if it is true, and do this. I wanted to do that. How do we do that? Let me assign that user name value. And since I'm using, I need to close these brackets so that it would return the actual value true or false here. Once this is done, let me use this here. If this is passing, it would return true. If it is not passing, it would return false. So that is the logic. Let me cut. If this is true, do that, else report user name is not passed into login section. So this is the representation. Let me also copy this for the time being, and let me use that in the main section as well. If that is present, username is passed into the login section. So this is the verification which we wanted to do in the beginning. So many things. Now we have utilized another methodology called wait property. We are waiting to cross-check a property called value with respect to that username for a specific time, 5 seconds, with a value EarnQA. If everything is matching, it would return a value called true. If the username value true, then it could display a message, yes, username is passed into the login section. So now I can again re-enter, or I can skip this field. I can click on login. If it is not, then it is not passed is the actual implementation. So let's get started to do this implementation now. Let me close this browser, save and run. Now so many things we are doing, but it's very good that it helps everything to understand one by one. It opened the application. It is cross-checking whether sign-off link exists. Since sign-off is not there, it went to login and it's trying to see whether value is present. Since it's not there, it would return a value. Username is not passed into login section. Perfect. And this is what we wanted. So as per the requirement, username has to be passed, but it is not passing. So this is another way that we could validate using one of the synchronization point called wait property. And you could see that login status false because we could not log in, as simple as that. So this is all about synchronization, which helps us to design better script. And look at, we have designed functions as well. We have designed verification points as well. We have designed synchronization as well. There are 5 ways that we did. Sync, exist, and then explicit to wait. And the 4th one is called wait property. 4th one is called wait property. 5th one, just go to a file, settings, with respect to run, you could see object synchronization timeout. If any object in the application, if it is not present, it would wait to cross-check that object for 20 seconds. If it is present for 20 seconds, it would wait and do the step again. If it is not present for 20 seconds, it would report the status object is not visible or object can't be found. And this is the 20-second default time. If you wanted to change, 30 seconds. If you wanted to change less, 10 seconds. That's up to you. But this is another way where we could also use to ask QTP to wait and synchronize, wait and cross-check for an object if it is not present at the first time. or if it is not present during the script execution for a time period 20 seconds. So this is all about 5 methodologies. Let me open the actual presentation and let me explain you one by one. So this is what we're talking about. This is all about the synchronization, and we have 5 different methods. The one in the settings, just now we have looked at. The second one, sync method, which is applicable on a browser and page. Exist is applicable to cross-check any object, any application object. My web edit exists, check for 5 seconds. My web button exists, check for 5 seconds. Next one, wait, explicit wait. Next one, wait property, wait to read and validate a property. The last one in the settings. So this is all about that we have done in a practical representation. And this practical explains 2 things: how we can do the functions and how we can do the verifications, also how we can utilize the synchronization. Sync, exist, wait, wait property, and default time of the QTP settings in the run. So this is all about the actual synchronization concepts in the QTP. And there are so many things that we need to come back and learn about, and few practicals about it as well. So thank you so much for watching the video. Please visit EarnQA.com. There are so many videos, presentations, articles, books, PDFs, and code with respect to automation, test management, performance testing, and functional testing. Thank you so much. See you again.